So welcome all. I'm Emily Ruddick. I'm the Executive Director of Mass Creative. I'm here with G. Quash, our Director of Engagement and Organizing. And it is April 30th. I'm not just here with G. He's the only other team member from Mass Creative who's joining me today. I am here with lots of other arts and cultural advocates. So let's get rolling. So we're going to start with federal items. So as I'm sure many of you know, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant application portal is finally up and running after several false starts. I have been in a number of groups that Mass Creative participates, has been hearing that folks are getting their applications in, and we are so excited and so relieved that that is happening. There's some links in the chat about if you are thinking about applying or you're still in that process, don't wait. And there's also the Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston is offering 15-minute one-on-one coaching sessions. So please take advantage of that. The other thing that happened this week around the American Rescue Plan Act is that the NEA released, gave some funding announcements. So as part of the ARRP, there was a significant amount of money sent to the National Endowment for the Arts. 40% went to regional, state, and local agencies, while the NEA is going to retain 60% for direct grants. So there in the chat, you'll see the links that'll give you the announcement, and then it'll give you the exact funding numbers for those regional, state, and local agencies. So the Mass Cultural Council will receive a little under, or will receive $845,000, while the New England Foundation for the Arts, which is our regional NEA agency, will receive about $1 million. Neither agency has yet announced how they're going to distribute that money. I would imagine that the Mass Cultural Council will bring that up at their next council meeting, which is in early May. But that's information that we'll be able to share. We'll hopefully share and announce soon, along with our partners at the Mass Cultural Council and NEFA. And then the 60% of money that the NEA will directly grant, the process is still TBD. I will say that it was made very loudly clear to the National Endowment for the Arts and the national, in conversations that we've had with staff at the National Endowment for the Arts, they've very clearly heard that the last distribution round of money that the NEA had for COVID relief from the CARES Act, where only past grantees 5 years back were eligible to apply, that they've heard that that was not a fair, equitable process. And so they are considering how to change that. And I would imagine that's why the direct grant process is still a little TBD. Next, on the federal level is the annual fiscal year, or the annual appropriations process. So we now have a clear ask for the NEA and the NEH. It's so 160 million each. I should have put each in big bold letters, so it's not combined. But so that's the ask that that national advocates and all of us are making in the appropriations process. And the other item that came up this week is that Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont, who is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, announced that the Senate will take up congressionally directed spending. So that is the corollary to the community spending planning or projects that the House had. And so these are earmarks, right? And so we talked a little bit about this, about how members of Congress are required to create a page on their website where organizations and government entities, so nonprofits and governmental entities, could submit projects for consideration for the member of Congress to submit and request. The Senate will do a very similar process, and that's what Senator Leahy announced, that they will be required to have a page on their website, that there are no projects will be allowed for for-profit businesses, so it's all nonprofits and governments, local and state. And then that the other thing that's different with the Senate is that there will be no caps. So in the House, it was each representative could only submit 10 projects for consideration for the committees to consider, and there won't be any caps on the Senate side. So we will see how that develops. Obviously, our U.S. senators, Senator Markey and Senator Warren, are deep supporters of the arts, and so we will hope and engage them to make sure that some of the projects that they put forward relate to the arts and cultural communities. Okay, so let's talk about the state. Big news from Governor Baker, reopening guidance. So on May 10th, Singing will now be permitted indoors. This is obviously something that many of us have been watching and waiting for and advocating for. In the announcement that was made, there was a caveat, right, that there's going to be strict distancing requirements, and that's super vague. Like, what is this? What are we saying is a strict distancing requirement? My understanding is that the Department of Health and Secretary Sutters are working on sort of more details around that will be released before May 10th. Then on May 29th, they are going to increase capacity in indoor and outdoor gatherings, and street festivals and parades will now be allowed at 50% of their previous capacity prior to the COVID restrictions. And then finally, I think this is like, frankly, for me, the biggest news is that we are seeing an on-ramp, right? So before, in the reopening process, it was like, maybe we'll tell you what's going to happen next month. But now they're saying that depending on public health data, obviously big, bold in my slide, on August 1st, all restrictions and capacity limits will be lifted, right? So that obviously for our sector gives us some time to start planning and to think about programming and to sort of move forward with things. I want to note that in my conversations with the Office of Economic Development, the Department of Economic Development, excuse me, Secretary Keneally's office, it was made abundantly clear to me that one of the reasons that they sort of gave longer out estimations about what was going to happen was thanks to significant advocacy and conversations that happened from our sector. So again, I just let us celebrate and acknowledge that advocacy works. So thank you all for those of you who worked on that. Then the other big news, and Derek shared this, Derek is joining us. He is just recently joined Chair Fiola's office as the research director. And so this is great news. The House passed their version of the fiscal year 22 budget. They're included a $31.3 million allocation for the Mass Cultural Council. So the Mass Cultural Council requested $20 million for this year. The House Ways and Means Committee put out a $20 million out of the gate. And then through the process of amendments, $1,375,000 more dollars were added. And those are specific earmarks for specific organizations and projects. So that won't be money that goes into a larger granting pot or for the agency operations. But this is really great news. And this happened because we have all been making the case and sharing the impact of COVID-19 through the surveys that the Mass Cultural Council has put out and requested your help with. You've talked with your legislators. We've followed up with our legislators. And that's how this works, right? Like, we made it easy for them to say yes. And that's what we want to be able to do. So we know the Senate process will begin in May with the Senate, the Senate Ways and Means version coming out. We are crossing our fingers that we see a $20 million out of the gate as well, and we can have, knock wood, touch a horseshoe, one of the easier budgeting seasons in recent memory. But we're going to still keep on this, right? And it's not enough to just ask for things when we're talking about advocacy. Advocacy is about relationships. And so we also need to say thank you and to follow up. So there's a link, there's a brand new thank you action alert that you can use and you can share with your networks and your audiences to the members of the House to say, we acknowledge, we watched what you did and that means a lot to us. So please don't skip on that, right? It's not just about saying, please give us something. It's also about saying, thank you for what you gave us. So the other big news is that next week, the COVID-19 Cultural Impact Commission will start its work. So this commission was established as part of the Economic Development Bond Bill that was passed last session. It's here's exactly what the commission is focused on, right? It is really talking about recovery and then also growth, right? And how do we see our industry sort of move into recovery and then into resilience. Here are the members of the Cultural Impact Commission. It is going to be co-chaired by the co-chairs of the Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development Committee. That's Chair Kennedy and Chair Fiola. And then there were a number of specific appointments that were included in the language of the law when it was established. And then the chairs appointed 7 additional members that represent, frankly, that represent our industries and our sector, right? So we have We've got arts education with the Educational Theater Guild. We have 2 cultural districts that are represented. We have artists. We have Stage Source, which is a an association of all of our theaters in Massachusetts. We have humanists and humanities also included in here. So this is really exciting. The first meeting will be next Tuesday. And I think, yeah, I'm going to wait for a second. We put a link in the chat so you could register if you want to watch. It is an open meeting. As I understand it, and Derek, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but so maybe give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But as I understand it, this first meeting will not include the opportunity for testimony from people who attend, but we do expect that at some point there will be the opportunity to submit testimony. I'm seeing Derek's head nod, and I appreciate that. Thank you. But that's the thing, right? This committee is going to meet through June, right, to do the bulk of its work and meet its mission. And the one of the big pieces, right, is that it has to put out a report at the end of this with specific policy recommendations. And so Mass Creative is going to ask for all of your help in this, right? Like Mass Creative works because we are a member organization. We represent over 400 arts and cultural organizations and thousands more individuals. And our job, as we see it, is sitting on this commission, is to make sure that your needs and your interests are amplified and met, right? And that we can help unite the creative thinking and the problem solving that I know all of our members have to think about really strong policy recommendations. So I anticipate an ask in your inbox from us about how we can best do that. Okay, next, I want to just put in a plug for the Commonwealth Cultural Futures Act, right? This is the $200 million ask that Senator Kennedy filed. It would take $200 million from the American Rescue Plan Act money that's going to the Commonwealth, not to the local municipalities, but that $400 billion that's going to the Commonwealth, and create the COVID Cultural Relief Fund. So just quick little update here. We're up to 52 co-sponsors, 53 if we include the bill's sponsor, Senator Kennedy. And so here's how the numbers fall out. We need more. Frankly, like 52 is great, 80 is amazing. And so I need your help. I'm sure if you are on this call, the likelihood is that you have already sent your notes to your state reps and your state senators, and I really, really appreciate that. But I am interested to know how many of you who are in organizations have sent out that ask to your audiences or to your membership or to your visitors in your networks. That really is going to make a difference. How many of you are amplifying this on social media, right? That's how we can actually sort of move this along. One of the greatest advocacy assets that our sector has is the audiences and the people in the communities that we touch and impact with our work. And this is a moment where we can really help leverage that advocacy asset. So please consider doing that. We do, again, and I've shared this before, we expect that the legislature will take up a stimulus spending plan in September. That's what we're hearing. So we still have some time, but we don't want to wait. Don't hold back. So then the other thing about the American Rescue Plan Act that I want to just sort of really remind everyone of is that, so there's about $8 billion that's coming to Massachusetts. $4 billion is going directly to the Commonwealth to distribute. And then the other $4 billion is going to cities and towns across Massachusetts. So that means, and that's pretty much every city and town in Massachusetts. That's a lot of money. That's a generational opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity kind of money. And so we expect that the federal government will put out guidance in mid-May. And after that, we're going to work really hard to develop some tools and some resources so that you all can make sure that you're advocating to your local governments that however they choose to spend that money includes the arts and cultural sector. We can't afford to just say, oh, we'll take care of it on the state level with hopefully, knock wood, as much of 200 million as we can. We also need to think about the money that's going to the state and to the municipalities, the local towns and cities in Massachusetts. So please put a bookmark in that and we will update you soon. So our work is just really quickly is dependent on all of you being in community with us this morning. And it is just a highlight of my every other week to be with you all. So thank you. I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at the faces of the participants to my, that I've got on my right. But our work is only possible thanks to your support. So this is a plug. If you received a renewal and membership, organizational renewal membership notice from us, please don't wait. And remember, we work on a sliding scale and we know that everyone has been impacted. So if you're usually, if your dues are usually one number, like they don't have to be this year. It's more important to us that you are part of our work and demonstrate that through joining us as members. And then we also have the opportunity, if you'd like as an individual, to become a sustaining member. Literally $5 a month makes a huge difference. You wouldn't believe. And frankly, every time I go in and see my monthly renewals pop up on our accounting software, it like keeps me going. So, and it keeps us all going, right, at Mass Creative, because we know how many of you are in partnership with us. So I hope you will consider doing that today. And then finally, our next policy and action update will be May 14th. As many of you saw, we've made an adjustment to registration. So you no longer have to register per webinar. You can register once and then you've got the link and you can come back every time. So I guess my ask today, because all of you are on this, so I know you have the link, is to think of 3 people who you can shoot this note out to and say like, hey, do you know about this resource that Mass Creative has? You should join me for the May 14th meeting. Let's see how many people we can get to join us in this work together. So that's all I have. I am so glad to be here with all of you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Have wonderful weekends. I hope you get some time outside.